You've waited a lifetime to look better and feel better, and now here's your chance. Fitness Friday on WNDB. Call 239-0033 and have your questions answered on health, fitness, and a better life. Fitness Friday is brought to you by Bodez by Tasso & Company, 1140 West Granada Boulevard in Ormond Beach. And now, here's your host, Tasso Kyriakis.
Welcome to Fitness Friday on Valentine's Day. We're here for the heart of it. The heart of it.
Your heart health.
Heart health. There you go. So, that's American Heart Health Month. I'm going to focus on two things today, Dave. I'm going to talk a little bit about aerobic improvement, because that's what we talk about when we talk about heart health in most people's mind. I'm going to talk a little bit about equipment and exercise. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about supervision. Some interesting research has come out. And,
supervision.
Supervision. What were you thinking?
Giant television, a supervision.
A super TV. So, I had, but let me catch up on local stuff first. I had the pleasure last night of having dinner with Bill Elliott and Chase, and Chase's mom, Cindy, and I'm pretty excited for Chase. He's going to race in the ARCA this year, and then in the nationwide race. So I'm really, really excited. It's I'm actually going to try and go out and see my very first ARCA race in person. Maybe I saw someone when I was younger, and I just didn't realize I was watching.
Right.
But usually I sit at home and watch the ARCA race, but I'm going to go out there and...
You're going to then hang around for the second race, right?
That's the
Sprint Unlimited in the evening.
Yeah, it used to be called the Bud Shootout.
Right. It's had a lot of different formats over the years.
So I'm going to go out and see that and just take that in a little bit and enjoy it and see what happens. And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting week. For me, it's an exciting week. It's like, it's like you're moving to a different generation of training an athlete, And, last night, one of my buddies came over to meet Bill Elliott when we were training, and he said, man, Bill looks in great shape. He says, Bill Elliott, realistically, is one of the few athletes I train over the years, and I've trained him since about 1983, that every time he comes back to the club, it's as if he was there last week, and I can adjust his weights as if he had worked out with me in that week. Whereas most athletes, they tend to go and they don't take care of themselves outside of the routine that we get them prepared with and stuff, or they go do something completely different, or they go play their sport. And they come back, and we sort of got to back off on their level and then bring them back up. But Bill does a great job. He has equipment at the house. He does a great job of staying in shape, and he's also very active. He just came back from being in Colorado and doing some snowboarding and things like that. So, we were teasing about the program for Chase to have at home, and he says, well, I've got one of those devil things that they split wood splitter, devil splitters. They split the wood. He says, and I've got a chainsaw for some trees. Yeah. And now Bill, that's what Bill does to stay in shape.
Yeah.
So it's fun, but nothing like good physical labor from that standpoint. So I want to start, and I want to talk a little bit about first area I want to talk about is something I think that is very overlooked by a lot of people. And one of my friends is a strength coach at the Michigan State University, and his name is Ken Maney. And he's been there for quite a long time, and that program pretty much has had a very very consistent performance from the standpoint of their athletes. You see it in their basketball program and their football program and that. And coaches have come and gone, but Ken has been there for at least 17 years that I know of. And I always enjoyed looking his articles. And, he spent a lot of time doing that, looking at articles and talking about cardiorespiratory conditioning, speed development, and just basically performance enhancement, which we do a lot through the Oxio Sports Medicine program that we have now. And I've gone to a few of his clinics and stuff, and I was starting to think last night, and had the opportunity to talk to a friend of mine, Luke Carlson, who owns Discover Strength in Minneapolis, and we were talking, and we started talking about Ken, and he says he has a sign. He says, remember the sign that's in the weight room at Michigan State, and it says, iron sharpens iron. And he borrows his inspiration from the Bible, from Proverbs 27:7. It says, just as iron sharpens iron, one man must sharpen another. The concept is simple and profound. We rely on another person to push us, to help us become a better person in my business, and to have potential. And really, think about it. If you're building a team, Dave, you want everybody to realize that we need each other to be successful. You want everybody to enter work in that. And so Luke and I were sort of brainstorming, and we came up this. I've had this. I was telling him that I have this statement I always like to say when I talk. It says, "We'll start you where you're at,
right,
and we'll get you where you want to be."
Mm-hmm.
But we really came up with another one that would be interesting to get people's feedback. It says, "We will not accept you as you are. We prefer to show you what you can be and help you achieve it." So I'm still toying that, because I think it says more like we'll take you as you are, and we prefer to show you what you could be and help you achieve it, because that's what our programs do at Bodez. We take you where you're at in your program,
mm-hmm.
and we begin to develop a game plan for you to change the way you feel about yourself, the way you carry yourself, and that type of thing. So, but really, what it all gets down to, it embodies the most the principle that is most frequently overlooked. It's one of the most powerful components of an exercise program. And we spend all this time reading about all the new programs, all the new things coming out. I go to seminars to hear about how long people should exercise, how many sets they should do, how many reps they should do, what exercise is better. But the one common denominator that's overlooked is supervision. Scientists and fitness professionals and exercise enthusiasts are in constant pursuit of these new improved ideas. But this is the one concept that is the most important, because when you work out with a partner or you work out with the supervision of a professional, what happens is you stay motivated, and if you're with a good professional, you don't get injured. This helps you to do it. Now, I know what I'm doing exercise-wise. I always had access to really good equipment for all these years. Mm-hmm. But you could count on the one hand the number of times that I've worked out by myself. And it's not that I'm not motivated. I think I'm a pretty good, I'm a pretty good, motivator. I'm being motivated for myself. But, regardless of the type of exercise, the style of the workout, the goals of the person, whether I'm training a type 2 diabetic or an elite athlete, supervision singularly produces the greatest results.
No doubt.
Research studies showed in two separate groups who performed the exact same workouts that the group that is supervised will have dramatically different results over the other one. Direct supervision always produces better, faster results. It applies to whether we're talking about chronic disease prevention, or we're working from the standpoint of athletic performance or fat loss, or just trying to improve muscular size. This has been true throughout my career. I've done this. That's why I enjoy, the training of one-on-one with people, is because it allows us to work with it. And no matter what athlete I've worked with, no matter what person experience-wise, when they come in and they say, hey, listen, I know what I'm doing, we still want them to go through, because we know they're going to get better results when we supervise their program. So, when we look at Bodez' business model, we look at it that it has three components to it. It has the general fitness center that is called the Bodez Express. And that general fitness center, what it does is it's the typical gym. It's $29.50 a month. It's got machines, and it's got traditional cardio equipment and that type of thing. But it doesn't have the component of supervision. But a lot of people don't want it. That's why the Planet Fitnesses and those places are flourishing right now, because people want to go in, they just want to do their own thing. Okay, but really, when you look at the model of health clubs in this country, are they truly producing results? Are they truly enhancing health? Because when you see America getting popular, even though we've had a threefold getting more more obese, when we had this popularity where we have a threefold increase in the number of fitness centers around this country over the last 15 years. How can that possibly be? That we've almost tripled our level of obesity to 67% of the population to be overweight, if fitness centers, if fitness magazines, if at-home fitness programs were truly doing what they were supposed to do and delivering those results. So we see it that every person we've ever partnered with as an athlete or as a person in our programs has been successful. So now the second program at Bodez is called the Body Coach membership. And, you know, we have a great offer going right now. When you join for $14, it's, wow, what was that?
I don't know.
It's a big flower truck pulling out. if you join for $14 and you pay your card fee of $20, that includes your first month's dues if you were joining our Body Coach membership. So it gives you an opportunity to have a great supervision experience. Now, there's going to be some people that stay with that program. There's going to be some people that go back to Body's Coach. But what we are doing is trying to expose people to the opportunity to have supervision in their program and direct supervision from that standpoint. Now, where we do the best job supervising a program and guiding it, of course, is our one-on-one. And what we do there, each person is trained individually, and we work with them from that standpoint. So, you know, the take-home message of this is that, you know, in your fitness routine, the element of supervision is the most important thing with the element of intensity. Mm-hmm. Because, see, intensity can be brought to the table by good form and someone coaching you, and someone also helping you to do things like forcing negatives. You know, I'm training a new 3 new trainers at the club, and today our training session will go through talking about intensity and how to bring intensity with high-intensity training methods. And they go everywhere from having a forced negative rep where you lift the weight for the person and they fight it on the way down, because over the years, if you've listened to me, we've talked about we're stronger in the negative exercise than we are in the positive exercise. And when you fatigue on the positive, we can still force some negatives and get great benefit from that aspect of it. We will teach them about things called breakdowns. We'll teach them about static holds. We'll teach about super slow. We'll teach about heavy negatives. So we will go through any number. You know, even my good friend and our good friend that you've listened to several times, Ellington Darden, has written a new book where he brought an old concept back that he called the 90-second rep. It was only one repetition of an exercise and one set. And what you do is you had a weight that you fought it for 30 seconds on a negative. And when it got to the full range, you started to pull back and you pulled for 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And then you did the negative again for another 30 seconds. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's a pretty disciplined workout because moving super slow. I've done that style of workout probably 10 years ago. And, you know, once you get your weights right, it is a very challenging workout from that standpoint of that. But think about that, 90 seconds, which is, for people who don't understand, the 60 to 90 second, you know, we talk about time under intensity. We don't count repetitions at Bodies. It's not important to us in the one-on-one program to count repetitions, because what we want is truly to be in a situation of time over intensity. And time over intensity for us means that we want to look at where the muscle performs the absolute best. And it performs the absolute best when you have stimulated it for 60 to 90 seconds. And in that 60 to 90 seconds has gone from being able to do an exercise to fatiguing and being at what we call volitional fatigue or failure, okay, where you can't move it. That's a perfect exercise there. Well, we can't do any better than that. Now, some people say, well, you know, I like to do 15 reps. Well, those people doing 15 reps are probably lifting it up on a 1 to 2 count. They're letting it down on a 2 to 3 count. Yeah. So really, they got 5 or 6 reps as well. They're 5 or 6 seconds per repetition. So what happens is take 5 or 6 seconds and divide it into 90 seconds. How many you get? You get approximately 12 to 15 repetitions.
Right.
If a person doing a 10 count positive like we promote, they're 10 counts up, they're 5 counts out, it's 15 seconds. So what do they need? They need 4 to 6 reps is all they need. So that's why we look at time under load and time under intensity, because we're not concerned about how much weight you use. And we find also that by moving slower in your exercise, you can use less weight and stimulate as much, if not more, muscle.
Something else I've learned from you guys is that super slow turnaround time when the weight's coming down and you don't let it touch,
right?
And then super slow.
And why is that, Dave? Because
that's where all the work is done.
If you sit the weight down and rest, like most people, you go to a typical fitness center. What do? You see people going with the weights, and in between each repetition, they'll go, you know, breathe real hard, and they'll get the weight up, and then they'll come down. And a lot of times they'll crash down. They'll rest, and they'll go. And boom, they go again. Yeah. Well, we know that physiologically the muscle recovers about 50% of its potential in 5 seconds. So if we take a person and we train them to keep that exercise under load and not touch it, number one, you can use less weight. What are most, like women, for instance, what are women afraid of when working out? They're afraid of building muscle, and they don't want to increase their weights because they tie building muscle to using heavier weights. Well, now we just gave you a method to lift the weight slower, which decreases your weight that you're going to use, and now takes care of some of that so you can actually truly experience, because women are not going to build bigger muscles from just working out. They're going to build bigger muscles from eating more calories if they do. They're going to build bigger. They're going to get bigger. They're going to build more muscles if they take supplements that enhance the testosterone level for them. But it's like 1 out of 1 million women can increase lean body tissue to that degree where they look like that bodybuilder that scares them so much. Okay, like 1 in 1 million or something like that. So for this reason, we're compelled to teach people to stay with a weight that is manageable, smooth moving, never needs to be set down, because what happens is we now get that philosophy of inroading that muscle, involving more of that muscle, and getting it to be more efficient from that standpoint. So we've looked at this over the years, and this has not come out of just we were sold a bill of goods. This came out of I spent from when I was 9 years old to when I was about 21 or 22 years old, training by traditional strength training methods of set training. Because I used to go with my brother to the gym and work out with the guys that he worked out with, and they'd be doing their own thing, and I'd play with the little dumbbells over here, and I'd do 3 or 4
How
sets.
old were you then?
I was actually 9 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, you talk about not being supervised. They would leave me off, and like, where do guys? Basically, it was in a big garage. And
Posters on the wall. Right?
So what did guys do? My brother was 15 years older than me, so he's 21, 22. He's working out with the buddies. Were they concerned about having big biceps and a big chest? So they're over there doing the bench press, the bicep curls, and all that stuff. Where am I? I'm over there by the leg press, because that's what no one's using. So I'm doing the leg press, and I get pretty strong on the leg press. But I got strong not knowing what I was doing, and as a result, what happened to me? I got a hernia when I was younger. And it's an example of under supervision, that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
That wouldn't have happened for that same one. So that's why it's important, again, going back to the main point of the first part of the show, which is talking about supervision. Letting someone be involved in your program to make sure that you get pushed. We tease a lot when we're working out with the boys, and we're really just working so hard. You don't want to hear it anymore because you're working so hard. And their retort to you is, we're just trying to make you a better version of you. Yeah. And that's so true.
But you still do that, right? You and Jim and your guys.
Oh yeah. We're always going to do that. That's
because you've invited me to join you, and I said I'm not joining you guys in that workout.
Well, I don't want you to join.
I don't
want you to join us, because first of all, and a lot of people say that. It's like our good friend Kenny Presley from Weston Coatings. Kenny's been working out now. It's going on 6 years. He's been, when he first started, he had 15, 16 medications, and now he's down to 4 or 5. And if we make the small lifestyle changes that are still required to be changed for him to get off those meds, we're going to be able to get off those meds. And all of us should understand that we don't have to be taking these meds for the most part. It's one of the biggest lies that's been sold to our population, especially around the statins. And it's the kind of thing that we don't have to take them if we make some small changes in our lifestyle. If we take those 3 things that we've talked about on this show as the synergy is good nutrition, eating better meals, making better choices, and again, that doesn't have to be deprivation. We don't have to say, I've got to cut myself down to 600 calories a day. In fact, I think there is a trend where more and more people begin to discover maybe we're so sick and tired of depriving ourselves to lose weight, going down to 5 and 6 and 8 and 1,000 calories, that we're finally going like, hey, listen, there is something to my friend over there can eat, and he's not gaining weight.
Right.
So we can eat, because that helps us master our metabolism. We are not slaves to our metabolism or victims of it. We are the creators of it. And part of the thing we do to create our metabolism is how we eat. So, we get people from the standpoint of looking at that, and the synergy we have is eating good nutrition. Second one is strength training for muscle. In other words, let's improve the muscle. That's what we're talking about under supervision. And the third one that we're going to talk about in a little bit is moderate aerobic exercise. And moderate aerobic exercise is not 40 or 50 minutes on a treadmill every day. It's not necessary. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go on through the show. Before I leave the point of strength training, I think it's important to note, Dave, I had yesterday, it was a great day yesterday because I got to talk to Luke, and I got to talk about Ken with him, and I was talking to Denton Smith, who's going to join us on this show in a couple weeks. And Denton has moved down to New Smyrna. He was the president of SciFit, which I think SciFit has been one of the major improvements that we've made in our club in the last 6 or 7 years. That equipment, and he said to me, he says, in the old days, the fitness centers, we were purist with them, and the purist meant that it was really based on strength training, and there was no cardiovascular area, and there was no strength area. It was just the gym is where you went. And the couple guys that were in the meeting that he was talking to, they were sort of confused by that statement, because he made another statement. He says, when you take an individual to train them, the equipment is not the important part of how you train them. And the point he made was this, is you could go to a knowledge machine, or you could go to a barbell, and you could use that for aerobic conditioning. Let's look at the best example we would think of. Heavy Hands. Remember that product back in the 70s and 80s? Heavy Hands it got people to walk with basically hand
weights in their hands.
So they would increase their caloric expenditure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's dumbbell is considered to be a anaerobic strength training device or a muscle building device,
right,
but it was used for aerobic conditioning. Now, the people who go to the Nautilus Center and they train on the Nautilus equipment at their fitness center, or whatever type of equipment is there, and they use lighter weight and do lots of reps, what kind of training are they doing? They're not doing muscle training. They're doing aerobic training,
right,
is what they're doing. So when we look at this, we have to look and say, it's not the equipment. And so now his point was very well done. Now, some of you out there are going like, well, how do you train strength on a piece of cardiovascular equipment like a treadmill or a bike? Well, we're going to talk about that because it's much more efficient. And it goes back to that baseline of what we want to do in accomplishing our fitness goals and what are the components we want to build up. So we understand it's possible to increase aerobic efficiency and aerobic capacity through exercise. But it's a bit more complex than simply training with your target heart zone with proper frequency. While stimulating a training effect is likely to bring about some aerobic improvement, when you consider load, recovery, body composition, and nutrition, we have to recognize aerobic results are dependent on upon far more than just your workouts. And that's where that end of load and recovery comes in. Now, we could, when a person comes to me for a fitness profile, Dave, I test what's called their VO2 max uptake, okay? It's increased oxygen capacity is what it is. That's one of the benefits of aerobic improvement. So what we get them to do is with increased efficiency, they get to be better deliverers of oxygen to the cells, which throws off what product? Carbon dioxide, right? Okay, because we go through the metabolism.
Do you ever use a pulse oximeter? You put your finger in the machine, it tells you the amount of oxygen in your blood. That's important, right?
No, I've never used that for my exercise testing, but I've seen it used in hospitals and that type of thing. So, and this goes to that typical concern that we see. If you were to graph out what quote unquote is aerobic exercise, you would have an explanation of, hey, listen, you're here, you start walking on your treadmill, you start running, we start biking, whatever you're doing, and your heart rate goes up, and there's going to be a point at where your heart rate, you're breathing sort of hard, you're going, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're breathing really easy, and that's called your aerobic threshold, because now you've crossed over in what energy source you're using for your work. When you first started, you were using blood sugar, that carbohydrate is easily available in your blood, okay? And as you start to exhaust that supply and the fight or flight response starts to take place, now your body says, well, I need to be a little more efficient than burning just sugars. So what I'll do is I'll change my body to where I'm using oxygen and I'm burning fat, okay? So now you begin to burn fat as your source, and you're in what's called aerobic exercise, okay? And then eventually as you go through the aerobic exercise, there's a top part where you start to pant, and that exercise area is called your anaerobic threshold. And that's where strength training takes you to. Now keep in mind, the muscle source, the energy substrate changes again. When we first started our exercise, it was sugar, it was a carbohydrate. When we got into the aerobic zone, we were using fat, okay? When we get up into the anaerobic threshold, we're using sugar, but in the form of something called muscle glycogen, something stored in the muscles. And this goes back to some of the explanations we had about why people get insulin dominant and that type of thing. We can talk more about that. But I want to stick to the elements of aerobic improvement. And we talked about increasing this O2 capacity to drive the body. Well, the second thing is greater lung capacity. When we use this training I talk about of the burst training. We use it for people who have COPD. Why? Because it increases their lung capacity. Now, normal aerobic exercise does as well. But how can you tell someone that has a bad heart, say, well, Dave, we want you to improve your aerobic efficiency and improve your lung capacity, but we don't really know how to tell you how to do that. What we want you to do is we want you to go out and just walk every day. That'll get you some improvement. But when you go through the burst training we're going to talk about, you now begin to get a greater lung capacity, okay? So people who have COPD or people who are elite runners, those people want that. So now the next byproduct of a good aerobic improvement is getting greater heart strength. In other words, your heart can pump harder. When it pumps harder, you have a benefit. Number one, you get better stroke volume. In other words, every time your heart beats, full thump, it pushes more blood that's oxygenated through the body. It takes more blood that has carbon dioxide in it into the lungs to get exchanged and be made fresh and then be given away from the standpoint of energy in that. So then the next one is you begin to get greater recovery capacity. In other words, you can come back. We look at 4 parameters of muscular function when we look things that can be measured about our muscles. Actually, there's 5. We only concern ourselves with 4. The one that we don't concern ourselves with is called size. Muscular size doesn't concern us a lot at bodies. What we're concerned about is how strong is the muscle, how much work can it do, how long can it do that work, muscle endurance, and then how flexible is that? And then the final one is how quickly can you recover from your workout? In other words, what's your aerobic efficiency? So we want to elevate that anaerobic threshold. In other words, we want to get that higher up. So you can actually do more work per square foot per pound of your body weight. So here's things that contribute to greater aerobic efficiency. And we talked about some of the benefits of it. So a reduction in body fat will help you do better. Increasing your oxidative muscle fiber. What oxidative muscle fiber is that muscle fiber that has that fast twitch to it. It's able to burn fat very effectively, and it's also what gives you that explosive power, okay? So you can do things, all right? Your athletes, as you see, the good athletes usually are very high in fast twitch or oxidative fiber, okay? Increase your capacity of that oxidative muscle. In other words, if I have that muscle that's there for strength and power, it gets better to do more. It gets easier to do more work with it. We increase our stroke volume, so now the heart can pump a bigger volume of blood. So what's going to happen is you're going to increase your lung capacity because you're breathing hard, okay? And then you integrate that with your muscles. Now you get it really starting to work from the standpoint of getting your body leaner and in better shape and stronger. And then our neuromuscular development of exercise rhythm. You know, remember what aerobics was called when it first came out? What was the first big aerobic organized exercise program? It's called rhythmic aerobics. Do you remember that? And then jazzercise.
Yeah, floor aerobics.
Right. So we can test where you're at, and that's exactly what we do. You can do a pulmonary test with people. You can do a submax test. That's what we do, is submaximal stress. Or you can go to your doctor, your cardiologist, and you can do the stress test where he takes you up and pushes you as hard as you can. Yeah. And typically, we test by doing the submax. We can test by doing what I call our power. Physical work capacity or a power fit test, and then we can look at recovery rate to see how good a shape you're in, and those are the things we use. Now, what do we typically use for this? It's what's called the Carbonian formula, and it's 220 minus your age. That's your maximum. It's a guesstimate, okay? And it's a guesstimate, and it was, from the start, it was a guess. Because what they did in a lab is they were having people, they would work really hard, and they see where their heart rates went. And about the most they average getting high is 220. Getting up to the high of was 220. So they took this, and then they take it and they do 220 minus your age, and they do 65 or 80% of that, and that gives you your training heart zone. So if you're 60 years old, you take 220 minus 60 is 160, and now you say, okay, I want to train at that lower level, 60% of my max. Okay, so you take about 44 beats per minute off of that, and you get down into what 60% of your max is. Actually, a little bit lower than that. So that's
like what, 118, 120?
Yeah, it's down in that area. Maybe a little bit lower. If you're 60, let's see, it was 60 off of 220, it would be 160. So 10% of that is 32. Okay, so you'd be 32, 64. So you'd be way down. You'd actually get into your aerobic zone at about 105, 106. And then the top end of that is going to be at 80%, which would be around that 130 number.
See, and I've told you before, I'm on a drug
right.
for tachycardia, for rapid heart rate. So I don't get up. I don't usually get up. You know, my normal at-rest heart rate is in the 90s, which is kind of high, but, under 100 is considered normal.
Right.
So maybe I'll get up to 104,
right.
when I'm working out.
And that brings up a great point, Dave, because people who are training, with the number of people who are on blood pressure medication, the validity of submaximal stress tests, they lose their validity as you get your heart rate where it's managed by a channel blocker or a beta blocker and that type of thing. So what you have to now rely on is what's called perceived exertion level. And there's one sign of perceived exertion level is that you are doing whatever you're doing and you have a walkie-talkie pace and your forehead is sweating, but you can still talk normally like we're talking now. If you get to where you're panting while you're talking, you're getting your anaerobic threshold, which there's a benefit to that, but understand what you're looking for and that type of thing. So we want to look at, and that's one of the reasons why we developed on the SciFit, our physical work capacity test, is because you cannot think about from our end, we give people objective numbers when you first come to us. You come to get into a one-on-one program, and we want to give you objective numbers so you can see where you're at today. It's a measurable number. And so we go to do that measurable number with you, and what happens is you have a blood pressure med. Well, as a result of what we do with you, your fitness gets better. And your doctor says, wow, Dave, we can take you off some of your blood pressure medication. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we take you off your blood pressure medication. Now we come back and test you. You don't have a drug resisting your heart rate to go up, so your test results actually don't show as good. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wow, I've been doing all this work. How come I started out at a 24 and now I'm only 22? Well, that's a real 22. Mm-hmm. Before you may have been at 16 because of the medication. Because of the medication. So what we want to do is we want to get people to understand that when they come into a program, one of the reasons we look at medication is how do we put that program together? And so from the standpoint of their aerobic capacity and their aerobic work, we want to make sure that you are in a zone that helps you. And again, going back to, your tachycardia gives us a great discussion point because there's so many people that are afraid to exercise because they have tachycardia. Well, the point of the matter is if you strength train and you strength train properly and you do your aerobic training properly, you will decrease the chance of having tachycardia. Now, first, you can have a couple episodes where you get it. Mike Gelati, who's a great friend of this show and this radio station, lifelong challenge of having tachycardia, very easy. So when he first started working out with us, we really didn't have a lot of aerobic equipment. We weren't big, back to Denton Smith's point of it's how you use the equipment, not whether it's a treadmill or a weight machine. Okay, whether it's a cardio or a strength machine. So what we did with Mike is he trained knowledge training principles, went from machine to machine to machine within 10 seconds, and was pushed on every machine. Yeah. Okay, what happened? Then he began to get some problems with this tachycardia because he'd had it before and he was taking medication for it. So we continued with now the guideline. Mike, when you feel that your heart rate's going up, let's let it recover back down. And he managed that from the standpoint. Guess what happened? 10, 12 years into his program, long time, but he was patient. He worked out. He's off the medication. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the stroke volume of the heart is bigger, better, and has better endurance now. It can stick with it. It doesn't go into that tachycardia as easily. Does he still have those episodes of tachycardia? I'm sure he does. But it's not as frequent, and he doesn't need the medication because all of us are going to see those frequencies of those kind of things occurring to us. So now,
let me ask you this: people with heart problems, like AFib, for instance, where it's an electrical problem rather than a physical problem with the heart, that has to be managed with medication or even a pacemaker, ablation, or something.
Again, they're managed with medication, but again, we see nice improvement with people who now go away from, we have a couple people who have AFib, okay, and they've been on a series of medications. They've had some of them cut back now as their conditioning has come along, and as they've gone through and they've been able to tighten up what actually was wrong with them. But the thing about it is, again, they have to have that same guideline of being very conscious. They one of the improvements we're going to make at Bodez in this year is the first improvement that's coming in that we started to talk about on the show, and I probably should be saying a lot more about it today, is the return of group exercise to Bodez with a product called Fitness on Demand. Fitness on Demand will allow you to take what class you want to take, when you want to take it, and take it with the best instructors in the country. You'll walk in. We'll have a regular class schedule, but then also you will get that program whenever you want it, whatever you want. So you could finish out your workout in the body coach room and say, I want to do some stretching. And the stretching class may occur at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, you can go back in there, go to the kiosk, and pick the stretching class for the time that you want to do it, and go in and have your stretching class. And you may take a couple friends in there to do it with you. You may go in by yourself. Okay, so that's the first thing that's really brought the aspect of aerobic exercise back into the conversation here. The second part of it is that the next improvement after that is to bring a thing in called MyZone, because we're seeing more and more, we're putting heart rate monitors on our people. Well, MyZone will track that person in all their athletic and exercise endeavors. When they're at the club, it'll read their heart rate monitor. It'll display it for me. I could literally sit in my office and say, boy, Dave Lang's not pushing as hard as he should today. Or, boy, I better watch Jim, because Jim's heart rate is up in that anaerobic zone too much. And I can literally, as a coach, go and say, hey, listen, what have you been doing today? Because your heart's really going wacky. Now, let's say, like, you used to like to ride your bike to work. If you rode your bike to work, you could take the belt, wear the belt, click on it that you're starting an exercise program, ride here, click it off when you got here.
It would record
and
it all.
that whole recording was done. So now when you come in the next time, the minute you walk in the club, it's all downloaded. Then when you leave the club and the kiosk loses your connection, it says Dave must be gone with his exercise program. So what's it do?
Or I died.
No.
I'm only
Stop.
kidding. Only kidding.
Stop.
Only kidding.
So what happens is now that exercise bout is compiled.
Right.
And all that information is emailed to your house.
Very cool.
So you can see the last 25 or 30 hours of your exercise component. Okay. So I think that's a really neat feature. We want to put a group exercise program in first, and then we'll be bringing this. And it's one of the great reasons to take advantage of our $14 program, because when you join now, you get that program of the Fitness on Demand. You get it included in your membership when the program comes in. After it's installed, it's going to be a $10 per month extra fee. So we want you to take advantage of that today.
Yeah.
Okay, and
that's
get
a bargain. That's a great deal.
Yeah, by April 1st, we'll be full up and running with that program. We expect to have it in place by the middle of March.
What's that called again?
It's called Fitness on Demand.
It'll
be our group exercise program, exercise classes, the class you want, when you want it, for you with the best instructors. So, all right. So now we want to talk about we've talked a lot in the recent weeks about the fight or flight, as we've talked about burst training. And the adaptability of the body that we've learned to call fight or flight involves cellular activation that in real life situation moves a person through a set of 4 different states.
Right. 4
different states are the freeze state, the flight state, the fight state, and then the fright state. Okay, there's 4 stages. Now there's steps. They're not choices. We don't have a choice to say, oh, I want to go ahead and get into that flight state, and I want to stay there. Now. There's a variable outcome to what occurs. And so you understand what we're talking about in these steps, not choices. Here's the real deal. You go through them every day through stress. Stress in your life causes these steps to occur. So recovery is based on this transition through these states. and utilization of all the hormones and compounds are provided for a level of healing, but also a level of activation. Okay? So what typically happens, let's take a typical situation. You're in your office and you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden, your friend comes up behind you and scares you. Okay? They poke you, and you were like in deep concentration. You go, all right?
Yeah.
Well, at that moment, your body froze. Your senses became very, very heightened. And what you did is you started thinking, oh my God, am I in danger? Am I not in danger? Now, once you realize that you're past danger, there's no real danger, it's just your friend. What happens is you move into the next state. You move into flight, because what do people say when you start on like this? Oh my God, my heart's racing. Why is it racing? That's a natural response of the body. It now has dumped the hormones into the body, has activated the heart to go faster. You're going into a second stage called flight. Mm-hmm. Now, how deep do you go into flight is determined by what the risk is of what you got to do.
These hormones are adrenaline for one,
right?
And probably others. But
oh, there's adrenaline, there's cortisol. Mm-hmm. Okay, the hypothalamus activates your adrenals and your thyroid.
Okay. So
all those are involved in the process. I had to get a drink. I'm talking way too much.
You know.
Do we have to take a break?
We should probably take a break.
Okay, so we're going to stop with the variable outcome. We've talked about freeze. We've talked about flight. We'll come back and talk through the next level of what goes on in this process. I want to remind you guys that Bodez by Tasso & Company has a great program running on right now. $14 to enroll. Pays your first month's dues if you are involved in our Body Coach membership. You choose your dues structure after that. If you want to go over to the Bodez Express membership, you're welcome to do that. You can interchange through them, but the $14 includes your first month's dues and your $20 card fee you pay separately. So it's about $34 plus tax to get your membership started. You get supervision. You have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and it's a great opportunity to get in at these rates before the Fitness on Demand program comes, and we have that price increase to our programs. So 672-6464. We appreciate if you make an appointment, because we really do like to spend time with you and understand what your goals are. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
This February 21st and 22nd at Daytona International Speedway, 2 NASCAR series start their seasons with those 4 famous words. Drivers, start your engines. And that means fans, start your cheers. Start your anticipation. Start your hopes and expectations, because this is the start of the season as only Daytona can do it, with 2 of the most exciting races of the NASCAR season on the high banks of the World Center of Racing. The stars of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series kick things off with their biggest race of the year in the NextEra Energy Resources 250, Friday night, February 21st. And a star-packed field of top drivers come together to start the NASCAR Nationwide Series season in the Drive for COPD 300, Saturday, February 22nd. Kids 12 and under are free. To guarantee your seats, call 1-800-PIT-SHOP or visit Daytona500.com.
Shopping over 1,000 booths at the Daytona Flea and Farmers Market is the best way to jumpstart your weekend.
We're getting in gear for Speed Week. The market will be open every day.
February 14th through the 23rd.
During those 10 days, you'll find thousands of racing souvenirs at Speedway Village in our south parking lot.
Celebrating 33 years in business, the Daytona Flea and Farmers Market is still the one for great savings and the best variety. And as always, there's never a charge for parking or admission.
With one of the largest monthly car shows on the coast and exciting giveaways, there's always a reason to visit. Get all the details at DaytonaFleaMarket.com, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter. Interested in opening a business or having your garage sale at the market? Call Peggy at our rental office at 386-253-3330 for details.
Open every day, 9 to 5 for Race Week, February 14th through the 23rd. Come join the fun.
We're located just a mile west of the Speedway at 1425 Tomoka Farms Road. That's at the intersection of International Speedway Boulevard.
The Daytona's Flea and Farmers Market open 10 days straight during Race Week.
Hey, it's time to get the let out. That's right, get off the couch and keep that promise to yourself to be a new, better, slimmer, and more energetic you. Tasso here at Bodez Personalized Fitness, located in Ormond Beach, Florida. The foundation of any life-changing program is having a positive environment, support, and a success plan. At Bodez Personalized Fitness, we've been changing lives through fitness for over 30 years through positive support and plans that work. That's why Bodez is not your typical gym or fitness center. Discover the Bodez difference today. Start your journey for only $14. That includes your first month's dues. That's right, $14 to start, and it includes your first month's dues. We'll guide your program in a comfortable way that will get you started at your level. Your first 3 workouts will be supervised by appointment to personalize your plan. Then our staff will supervise your program every workout along the way for success. Call 672-6464. That's 672-6464 for the Bodez $14 offer. Start today and get your first month's dues free.
Call 239-0033 for Fitness Friday and your host, Tasso Kyriakis. Here's Tasso.
All right, so we started talking about, aerobic exercise because remember I forgot to do something. I should tell everybody about Dr. Fahn as a sponsor of the show. Otherwise,
you didn't forget. You got plenty of time.
Okay,
left.
So let me do that before we get into this part. I'd like everybody to take the opportunity to call Dr. Fahn, and if you have pain, if you're stressed out, if you need relaxation, if you've been through cancer treatment, if you have diabetes, like Dr. Fahn says, acupuncture number 1. There's not a condition you can give him that is not great for. And so we've had the pleasure for now almost 6 years working with Dr. Fahn, and have found him to be a really, really great acupuncturist. And he is trying to educate people and ask you to have an open mind to what acupuncture can do for you. So his number is 615-1203, 615-1203. He's located at 725 West Granada, located in, it says Acupuncture and Beauty is where he's at. Okay. It's Suite 15. And so what happens is you go over there and you're going to feel great from what he does. I go there, I try to go there, as you guys have heard, I try to go there once a week to get my stress reduction treatment from him. And for that reason, I've loved what he's done. I send a lot of my members to him. And, and what Dr. Fahn does plays exactly into what we're talking about here, about when we get these hormonal responses. Because here's what typically happens in a day's work. We're talking about the pillars of synergy for changing your life and changing how you feel and look. And that is 3 things: good nutrition, an attention to building muscle for metabolic state of the body, and some moderate aerobic exercise. And by moderate, we don't mean that's 40 minutes a day, and we don't mean that's a light amount of exercise. It means that we want to have some meaningful exercise. So we spent part of the show talking about aerobic exercise and the aerobic zone and that type of thing, which is more traditional cardiovascular training aspect. Now, let's take that knowledge we have and let's move it to the next level, which is utilizing the full spectrum of our metabolism, going through aerobic exercise and anaerobic. So now we go through a day, and the fight or flight response is actually the stress response. When you get stressed out at work, when you have a deadline, when you go through a physical stress, when you go through a mental stress, all that stuff, what it does is spike what we call the ACTH cycle, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the hypothalamus, the thyroid, all those things to be involved in what goes on. So now what happens is we get use versus non-use. If we get spiked by stress into these states of freeze, flight, fight, we don't utilize the hormones that have been activated to be released. So now our body's running on like high octane. So part of exercise, part of relaxation is to dissipate this hormonal response that you've had. That's what helps to keep you healthy. Because remember the premise that we brought forward several weeks ago. Inflammation is the cause of all disorders and diseases. Sure. In that, okay? And the mother of all inflammation is stress. But the effects of negative stress and inflammation can be reversed by exercise and that synergy. So now, if we don't move, we have the option. We can move and have into an aggressive state or not move. Okay, so if we move into an aggressive state, we have a very positive recuperative experience, barring a lasting injury. Okay, right. So when we actually have to go into battle, we have to have, for lack of a better term, battle. The loser of the battle has progressed into the fright state. So when his reflexes cease, then his muscles relax, and he begins to produce productive and healing compounds, a recovery. Well, guess what that bout is? let's get to that battle is your exercise program. When you push yourself, so see, if you're going and exercising and you're not pushing yourself in your exercise, if you're not bringing intensity, which is brought to you by supervision, which was that first part of the show we talked about today, you haven't stimulated your body to change positively. If, however, the aggressor was like restrained by chains, or if the frightened person wasn't really in a threat situation like we are in stress during the day, there would be little use for the altered chemistry that our body got. So now it's just hanging around there. It's left like waste material and has to be eliminated. And many times we don't eliminate it. The way we eliminate it, if we have flight, if in other words, our body goes in that flight stage and we don't use it, you get a weakening of the cell barrier. So cell membranes become more permeable, so you have greater access to your energy production. That's why it's letting out your blood sugar. So failure to use this energy, and the cell walls fail to go through their normal recovery. So now what happens is we stay in this extended state. How people stay stressed out a lot leads to a weakening of our mitochondrial membranes, what produces our energy for our body. The other thing is, what if we have fight without use? Okay, now we have this adrenaline, cortisol, thyroid, and our hypothalamus working and getting everything going, and we get our corticosteroids going. We have a breakdown of our tissue. Okay, we get adrenal stimulation. How many times you go to the doctor and say your adrenal glands are overstimulated because of all the stress you're under? We have a hormonal imbalance that gets set off. Ladies, this is the key to what's going on in your PMS and those things, is this imbalance. That's why your energy changes. But when you go through it, when you actually use it, when you have that intense encounter, you get greater access to your fuel, you get antioxidant. The body produces an antioxidant, superoxide, that helps heal the body. That reduces free radicals. You actually get an antimicrobial enzyme that helps from infection. So if you were bleeding, get enhanced healing and recovery. You get strengthened mitochondrial wall. You get heightened oxygen use, and you also have use of more of your fat stores. So that's why the burst training is so superior to steady state aerobic training. How about that for getting it done with just a little bit of time left?
I know one way to be in shape. One simple way.
What's
Call
that?
672-6464.
I certainly hope so. I hope everybody will take that. God bless you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the races. It's the start of racing. Hey, did you know this? That Florida is the only state in the United States that doesn't have snow.
No, even Hawaii.
Even Hawaii has snow. How about that? Welcome to Florida. Enjoy the races. Get into NASCAR. God bless everybody. Have a great weekend.
AM 1150 WNDB, Daytona Beach, Daytona's morning news station. Locally owned and operated by Southern Stone Communications.